Good morning. I'm GiniKondziolka. I am a graphic designer and an artist. I actually have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in visual communication from Northern Illinois University. I'm going to give you some tips on design do's and don'ts. So, and when I'm finished, the one thing I want you to remember after I've told you this, just kind of trust your own instincts. I know there are instances where either time constraints or budget constraints, you may want to do your own design of a flyer or something. So, and I understand that that happens. Whatever you do, do not make it a committee decision because you will not be happy with the results. Too many cooks always spoil the broth. It's the same thing with design. Your audience is very important. You have to write and design for the audience, not yourself. Speak with one voice. It's part of your branding, it's part of your business image, what you say, how you look. It's very important, and companies have published huge manuals on their branding. So don't make everything the same size. It becomes too gray. In other words, it affects the visual. It means that people will not find one main area to focus on because there's too much going on, especially like, take a look at this flyer. Almost all the pictures are the same size. There's copy all over the place. It's not organized well. The person who gave me this flyer told me that because of the look of the flyer, this was not an event she was going to participate in because it looked too amateurish. Something needs to be the main focus, whether it's a picture or the headline. That you have to focus somebody's, because remember, you only have like 5 seconds to get somebody's attention, if you're lucky. So think in terms of organization. The more important items should be larger, secondary items are smaller. Don't center everything on whatever you're doing. It becomes very static. Having things move around a little more, on the page, makes it a little more dynamic looking. This is very staid. There's, it's just not a good design. Don't try to fill the entire page. This was a flyer I got from someone. They've filled the entire page. They've put too many shapes into everything. I did a scan of it and reworked it a bit. So you can see I've added white space. I've added white space here, and I moved the call to action here after everybody's read through the different locations of the events. Then it tells you who to call to register. And I've taken out that big box that was there. It was just too much. Always include clear contact information on how to contact you. It should be separated out from everything else on the flyer. Generally, I like to move it down towards the bottom so that it's set apart from everything else. It doesn't get confused. Use color that's appropriate to your audience. I know a lot of that has been changing. Banks never used to use red as their logo, but more and more they're using red, they're using purple, so more unusual colors. But certain things never change, like when you see crime scene tape, it's always yellow with black lettering. The construction signs are always orange with black lettering. So some things you just can't change because that's already ingrained in our whole system. Don't use a font that would be hard to read, especially at smaller sizes, especially scripts. Not good. People will not read this. I can guarantee that. Do use a font that complements your logo. Whether your logo is a serif or a sans serif, you can mix both as long as you pick the right. You have to use your judgment, but you can use both together. Sometimes I will use a sans serif for headlines, but a serif for body copy because serif body copy is easier for people to read.
Is that actually a font that your name is in?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, actually, it was a font that Bill gave me for Christmas. Designers like things like that. Don't use more than 2 different fonts because it just gets too erratic. It's too jumbled. It's just not a good thing to do. But you can use more than one weight of a font. Most fonts come in at least 2 different weights plus italics. You can use italics to offset things too. A lot of times if I'm putting in a pull quote, I will put that in italics to set it off and make it look more like this is what the person said. It stands out better. This is a sans serif font, Helvetica. And actually Helvetica is nice because it actually gives you several weights, especially if you want to do, oh, wrong one, several weights. Like if you want to use an extra bold one for headlines and then subheads, so it comes in handy for that. I like that. Just make sure that whatever font you use is legible. So when you're doing a piece, consider the size of the piece. If you're going to print it on your own printer, make sure that you check what kind of margins your printer will print to. Mine actually prints to within 1/8 of an inch of the edge. I wouldn't recommend doing that because it still, and this one is actually cut off intentionally to show you what can go wrong. But I usually like to allow a 1/2 inch border. 3/8 would be minimum. If you're going to have a printer print for you, then you want to work with a standard size sheet, and it's usually best to talk to the printer and find out what would be the most economical way to have your piece printed. So generally, you know, you can work with 8.5 by 11, 11/17, and because of digital printing, 4 color is not out of the price range anymore. So, and if you don't have a printer, talk to me. I actually have 2 printers that I can recommend very highly. Thank you. Any questions?
Ginny, what is a sans serif? I don't know.
I felt that one was coming.
Is that like saffron, the spice that
No.
can't get or something?
Okay. You see this font?
Oh, those are 100 different fonts. That's a name of a font.
No, it's the style of a font.
Oh.
This font has little serifs, these little things that come off the edge of the lettering.
Get out of here.
This font doesn't have it. That's the difference. There are serif, sans
How many
serif.
different serifs are there?
Oh, there's a couple different serifs.
All right.
There are also script fonts.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, they got me once for speeding.
So, any other questions?
Yeah, one comment. I was always told that if you go like more than 80 characters in a sentence, that the eye gets tired and
Yeah.
drops off and doesn't read anymore.
Yeah, you wouldn't run, like if you were doing a flyer, you wouldn't run all the way across the page. It would be better to break it into 2 or 3 columns because the eye can't follow that easily. So it makes it much easier to read if you break it into 2 or 3 columns.
Do you have your specialty, or is there a good referral for you? A good type of referral?
I do a little bit of everything. I've been in this business for a very long time. I've done corporate identity, I've done business papers, I've done annual reports, brochures, I've done graphics for museum exhibits and signage. So anybody who's looking to improve their corporate image, you know, their business image would be a good referral for me. I've worked with a lot of nonprofits. Unfortunately, a lot of them have gone in-house with designers, but maybe some of the smaller ones who can't afford to go in-house, those would be good referrals for me.
No, this wasn't, well, what do you think about brochures?
What about them?
For general businesses, like, compared to a business card?
I think it depends on what you want to do with the brochure. I mean, do you want to send it out as a mailer, or do you just want to have something for when you meet with clients and prospects that explains what you do and how you can help them? So it could, maybe it's only a flyer, maybe it's just a postcard that you print 2 sides that you can hand out. It depends on who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with corporations, then it's nicer to have a nice brochure. If you're just dealing with smaller businesses, you can do a flyer, you know, a small flyer. Any other questions?
Is that kind of the trend now? I mean, almost everybody had a brochure. I think what Mike's getting to is probably 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have one now, but is there a trend to get away from that? Or?
Well, I think a lot of people are trying to avoid printing because of the cost, but with digital printing, it's much more affordable. I mean, you can do 4-color brochures, flyers for really reasonable pricing. I've been doing quite a few of those.
I've had some marketing people telling me that postcards are coming back. So for the last 5 years, I just do email marketing, marketing. And I should go back to postcards. The big ones, they don't like the small ones for some reason.
Well, you know, anything over a 4 1/4 by 6 postcard goes for first class rate.
Right.
4 1/4 will go for a
That's why
postcard
I like
rate.
the smaller ones.
Yeah, yeah.
The irony is that since no one does snail mail anymore, I think it has much more impact than
Right.
it's ever had before.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing with note cards. I mean, I sell note cards as an artist because your time is your most valuable asset. And if you take the time to write a note card and thank somebody for something they've done for you, it's huge because they realize you've taken the time to do this. It's very important. As far as print, several years ago, my printer was telling me that a lot of the people they printed newsletters for were not doing them because they were doing email. But then so many people were inundated with these email newsletters that some of these places started going back to printing newsletters because people were reading it more often.
I think Wendy touched on it, and that's just noticing the trends. If everyone's digital,
Right,
once you can go back
right.
to paper, then
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing that this is more in personal marketing, but resumes are now being written as newsletters instead of
That's
just
interesting.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to figure out a
Stand
way to
out.
do this.
Yeah,
but,
stand out.
but a resume writer told me that that's a new format that she's experimenting with because it pulls the person out from the crowd. If you think about it, LinkedIn is kind of set up like a newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
so it's like combining the cover letter and the resume to make more of a
Well,
story.
it's more, I guess, I'm not sure, I'm gonna ask her to send me a version of it, but I could see, like, instead of, just having a list of accomplishments, what you did under, ABC company, maybe you have that list, but you pull out one and you tell the little story, and maybe 2 paragraphs about that,
Yeah, that'd be
that
interesting.
accomplishment.
Yeah, I think that would look real interesting.
stand out.
Yeah, definitely.
Robots need something to read. Just kidding.
But for that, to me, you need a designer because
Right.
you could really
It's
mess
funny.
it up if you.
It's funny you mention that because I'm on the board of the Chamber for Harwood Heights and Norwich, and we have a scholarship program. So we had about 12 applicants. And there was one applicant that actually did something very similar to that, and they were one of the winners.
Cool.
I want to vouch for Ginny. I used Ginny about a year ago, and she came to my home, and she worked with us to design our wedding invitations, and it was pretty cool. And they were shipped to the house, and it was wonderful.
Actually, I delivered them.
You delivered them.
Yeah,
That's
I
right. You
delivered
did
'em.
At a chamber event, as a matter of fact.
My cards are also a vouch for Jen. She did a great job of just reorganizing.
Thank
what
you.
I needed to do, so I think I had a lot of design. I was teaching, like student teaching Photoshop classes in college because I knew the platform so well. But there's still also another level of designing that you may not be aware of. That I think just handing it over to someone that's professional can help organize what you're trying to accomplish. What's the most important thing? So you can
Yeah,
snap judgment.
It's, besides creativity, it's all about organization. You have to organize things in a way that makes sense. I actually redesigned my painting teacher's business card, which he never got around to printing, because he was teaching at Chicago State, the School of the Art Institute, and Art of His Own Studio. And I organized it in such a manner that you could distinguish all the 3 places he was teaching. And on the back side of the card, I reproduced one of his paintings. And he never printed them, but it did look better than the card he had given me.
But that's
Okay,
the
I'll
thing.
vouch for her too. But not in the print world. Ginny is helping me design, or it's already done in production. I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and we wanted a lapel pin. And Ginny was able to design that and get it created, made, not printed, but made for, what did it come out to, $2 a piece or something?
Something like that, yeah,
All
yeah.
the other quotes that I had gotten were close to $10 a piece. So very thankful for that. And obviously a nonprofit, we don't have any money, so less is more.
Kurt, I wanted to ask you about that because I'm going to be helping teach a class at Loyola, marketing class at Loyola in the fall, and it's in nonprofit work. And the woman who's teaching it is an old friend, and she asked me if I knew some nonprofits that the students could use as their topic, and I had
Yeah.
mentioned yours as a possible.
Yeah, let's talk.
Okay, great.
One more testimonial. You ever go to You ever go to Jack Gamboa's shared office space on Addison near Oak Park, 68 something west?
59.
59?
Yeah,
59.
6859.
And you notice the entrance, the logo entrance man as you walk in. Jack and I were going back and forth with the logo for this entrance mat. I said, wait a minute, why don't we let Ginny take a look at it? And she said, get off the all caps and go with small lowercase.
Cap and
letters.
lowercase, yeah. All caps is more difficult to read because everything's the same height. Cap and lower because it has ascenders, which are, this would be an ascender, the D, or descenders, like the J. That makes it easier to read. I mean, there are some instances where you can use all caps, but very limited. You know, like 1 or 2 words maybe. Ascenders and descenders make it easier to read. Plus, they were using kind of an odd font that was kind of blocky, and it was.
Yeah, we're just taking whatever we could off the what is it, Word?
Uh-huh.
What the hell do Jack and I know about fonts anyway? You know, we really need to help.
About anything would be
That's true. But when we do a logo mat for like the Pinnacle condominiums, all they want the front this 16 by 20 giant outdoor entrance mat to say is the Pinnacle. So that we do go with all caps. But that's so short and sweet, I guess.
But if
okay.
that's how their logo is, then that's what you have to go with.
Yeah, they really don't have a building logo that I know of.
They don't?
That I know of. I mean,
Uh-oh.
who get speaking
His
of
ears
Jack,
are ringing.
speaking of Jack Gamboa, look what the cat dragged in. Okay, Ginny, you got to do it again for Jack.
No, he can look at the video. Are we done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although now, if people, I just want to keep you talking.
Yeah, we need a few more testimonials. Anybody else?
That would be real. How about logos? Would you mind talking about logos briefly?
Sure.
I'd love to.
Well, a lot of people like to have a logo which brands their business. I'm actually working on a corporate communication, a corporate identity program to speak about the importance of graphic standards for your logo. Many companies will actually publish a graphic standards manual, and I have examples at home that tells you how the logo can be reproduced, what colors it can be reproduced. They will show you, do not do this with the logo. Like some people, when they will put a logo in, if they can't fit it, they will squish it this way or this way. You can't distort the logo in any way. I mean, it just doesn't work. It's not how you brand yourself. Branding yourself is the way the rest of the world, your clients, your prospects will view you. So it's very important that you present a consistent image. So I'm kind of a stickler for that. You have to use the same colors all the time. In fact, a lot of these companies will go so far, or actually in the old days, probably not so much now, but they would go so far as to have a special color mixed just for them. And they will put that in their manual, their graphic standards manual. You know, for a smaller business, it doesn't have to be that extensive. I've actually put together just 2 pages for my logo as an example, and all the fonts that go with it, all the supporting fonts, and then how the letterhead, business card layout. And there might be guidelines as to where the logo can be placed on something. They'll give you proportions for that. So there's a lot involved. I even have a manual on standards for how the Muppets should look. My husband used to work for a marketing agency that handled McDonald's, and they were doing a promotion with the Muppets. And this manual shows how Miss Piggy should look, how Kermit should look. So it's very important. International Harvester actually published a small brochure on the importance of your asset, which is your logo, and how you have to protect it. That's why a lot of people will register it so that it can't be stolen. Years ago, maybe you don't remember this, but years ago, NBC changed their logo to a stylized N and got sued by a television station in Nebraska because they already had the exact same logo. Different colors, but the exact same shape. And NBC actually paid them off to redo the logo. They paid them to get a new logo designed, and then they gave them a couple $100,000 in video equipment. so that they could keep it. And then they ended up getting rid of it after a while, and they went back to the peacock.
For all that.
Who was the guy who designed that? Was that Rand that did IBM and NBC or?
I don't remember who it was. I don't remember offhand who it was.
Do you remember who did the original Apple logo? I can't think of
No,
the
but I
design.
remember seeing it in an issue of Communication Arts magazine when they came out with their packaging.
Years later, they got a bunch of stock.
Nike did that.
Oh, Nike
Something like
also.
that with Nike.
The Nike swoosh, the Nike swoosh was designed by a woman. They paid her $35 for it.
And years later, like when she was retirement age, they gave her a bunch of stock.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
What about the Michael Jordan thing on the Nike?
I don't know who did that.
Because they say it's Michael Jordan. I mean, they were paying him $50 million a year or something.
Yeah, Saul Bass is a famous designer that designed a lot of logos. I think he did the one for a movie, The Man with the Golden Arm. So, yeah, there are a lot of,
And I think Herb LeBellin did the PBS logo.
probably,
He was
yeah, yeah.
He was the father of the guy who got me in advertising.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Who did the Legal Shield logo?
Did he?
Bunch of attorneys.
No, I said
Oh,
who
who?
did? Who did? Because they changed it.
Oh, did they?
You know, they went from this like golden arch
Uh-huh.
to that,
Oh, okay.
Art Evans,
and they are. Yeah, he's the.
he was the lawyer.
Well, he's on the board. Art Evans was the
he was the lawyer.
American guy, wasn't he?
Evans Tursky or something. Evans Lowenstein and something or other was their law firm, but I
Yeah,
don't know if they
those
still
guys
do
are
it or not.
retired. Those guys
Yeah.
are retired.
It's Paul Rand.
Paul Rand. Okay.
He did IBM, UPS, Morningstar, Apple.
Who did the FedEx? That's a cool one when you look at the
The
there's
arrow.
something in it with the arrow.
Oh, yeah, you could see the arrow. That's cool. Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's the power of logos, that you can tell the story in a simple image. Like,
Right.
should
Well,
have
that's
brought your
that's the point. I mean, sometimes an image doesn't work for a business, so sometimes you go to a typographic logo where you could still modify the font to have, you know, certain characters slightly different shape. So that's, you know.
You guys know this like I know ball players. Wow. All right, who's the starting shortstop for the 73 Oakland A's?
Manny.
Burt Campaneris.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Cool.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
They're a real good third baseman, too.
Ginny, you're going to validate our parking?
Sure. See me afterwards.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jack, do you want to do an intro?
Jack, you want to tell us what you